Okay, so I'm making this video on the full moon in Gemini, which is happening on December 26th at about 8 o'clock Pacific time, 8 o'clock Pacific time. You can see this sun is down here in Sagittarius with Mercury retrograde, and it's related to a sense of purpose and hope. This sun cycle as it moves through Sagittarius, and then opposite that, the moon is up here in Ardra Nakshatra in the sign of Gemini. And this moon in Gemini is to provide this reflection back and this contrast on this sun in Sagittarius. So the moon is the reflection of the sun, and it provides this opposite, this contrast. Of course, this is based on the sidereal zodiac, or what's called the Ardra Nakshatra, which is the circle without the calendar calculation added. So this is the zodiac that's used in Vedic astrology, Indian astrology, and in all classical astrological systems. It's the sky directly, right? So it's literally the constellation of Gemini, that section of sky called Gemini. When you look up in the sky at the moon, you'll see Ardra, which is actually the bright star called Betelgeuse. It might even look like Mars up there, but you'll look up in there, you'll see a star close to the moon, and that's in the constellation of Gemini. So again, I know if those who follow Western astrology, it's full moon in Cancer, Cancer, Cancer. It's actually not the constellation of Cancer. That sign of Cancer is based on starting the zodiac on the vernal equinox, not starting the zodiac on the sky. So we're using the astronomically correct and accurate zodiac when we use Vedic astrology. And so again, this is actually very close to the plane of the galaxy. Again, this is a very astronomically correct zodiac because the plane of the galaxy, the galactic plane, runs through this section of the sky, very close. It's actually 6 degrees of Sagittarius and Gemini, which is at the middle of Mula Nakshatra and the beginning of Ardra Nakshatra. That's where the plane of the galaxy runs. And so this is an incredibly intense and transformative section of the sky and time of the year, because again, the sun is in Mula Nakshatra, which is related to the goddess Kali. And it's about, literally the word Mula means root. So it's where our energy is rooted down in form and in our mind and consciousness, heart, and again, often in our dark emotions, because this section of Mula, this Mula Nakshatra, comes after the sign of Scorpio, where we can have a lot of imagined fears. So the first thing we need to do at the beginning of Sagittarius is pull out by the roots those fears and then plant new seeds in that hole that's created when we pull out by the roots. That's Mula. So that's the energy of where the sun is. So the sun is now passing through that section of sky where we have Mula Nakshatra. Again, it's actually related to the goddess Kali. And then opposite that, the moon is now in Ardra Nakshatra, which is related to Lord Shiva. And actually Ardra is also can be understood to be Arudra. Even the name of Shiva as Rudra is in the name Ardra. And Rudra is the very fierce form of Shiva from the Vedas, from the Yajurveda and the Rig Veda, where he's also called Pashupati, or the Lord of the Hunt, and the one with the bow and the fierce, transformer and destroyer. He's called Rudra in that form. So this is a big spirit and energy of this full moon. And we're very much on the cusp of some big changes right now, because obviously we're also on the verge of 2024. And I have forecasts that you can get a free forecast for the upcoming year of 2024 as well. Go to 2024vedicastrology.com to download the 11 most important shifts in 2024. Don't be blindsided by the upcoming eclipses, retrogrades. You can get the free forecast, which is both the PDF download as well as the free video report. And again, this free report will
allow you to discover important shifts for your sign, how to align with higher wisdom and purpose and hope in 2024 as Jupiter shifts and moves into Taurus. Also, different placements such as exalted Mars at the beginning of the year, debilitated Mars at the end of the year, the big 1-2 punch at the beginning of this year, when and how communication problems will be occurring throughout the year with the Mercury retrograde cycles, all kinds of other things that you want to understand. This is a free PDF download and then also a free web class. So go ahead, go to 2024vedicastrology.com and download that now.
So yeah, big year ahead. Obviously, they're all big, but Jupiter's about to move. We have these eclipses coming in April. Mars is here now at the end of December, but he's going to start the year in Sagittarius and then be exalted in Capricorn. So again, throughout the year, we have eclipses. Saturn goes retrograde. And then by the end of the year, Mars is debilitated over here for a couple months. So this is going to affect everyone. And you should know how these things are going to affect you. So go ahead and get that free PDF download so you can get the report and see that, track it, and then you just click this Get Started Now, and it will allow you, you just give your name and email address, and then you get the download, and then you also can register for the free video report where I talk about it for close to an hour. So again, it's all free. But so again, leading into that very transformative year is this very transformative full moon. So again, you see, anytime you have these opposites like this, and when you have oppositions like full moons, it brings together, one area of life and the other, right? This sort of opposition. Where the sun is, it's like that masculine energy, that masculine focus for that 30 days. And by the way, this is why we have 12 zodiac signs, because we have 12 lunations throughout the year, 12 30-day lunation cycles. You can just do the math. There are 30 lunations, which is new moon to new moon, 12 of them in a 365-day year, right? So during that time, we have the sun moving into 12 different places, okay? And the zodiac is those 12 different signs. Now, again, the signs, the zodiac are portions of space. It's not just the constellations are just figurines that were made as like mnemonics, but the zodiac itself is space, not stars, space, okay? Akash, that's what it is. So the sun moves through 12 different portions of space each year, and we have a new moon where the sun and moon come together. And then we also have the opposite point in that cycle when the moon reflects back on the sun. So that's when we're trying to integrate the polarity of the lesson. So again, this full moon is in Gemini, and we can tend to focus emotionally on the Gemini part, right? Because again, the moon is the feeling, but that full Gemini feeling is a reflection back on the sun in Sagittarius. That's why I explained Sagittarius first, because the sun is in Sagittarius for 30 days. The moon is only full that one day, right? Because the moon is waxing and waning, a 30-day lunation cycle. So right now we're all living this 30-day Sagittarius lesson with the sun in Sagittarius, which is aligning with higher purpose, higher wisdom. Again, the sun just went through Scorpio, where there's this, where there's this emotional triggering, where we're trying to stabilize our emotional frustrations and not just feel the vulnerability of life and the fearful things that we can't control. Again, and instead of feeling triggered, we're trying to go deeper into the heart with the Scorpio lesson. But again, the sun goes through Scorpio for 30 days and then builds upon that lesson in Sagittarius, where in response to the things we can't control and the vulnerabilities, what happens? Well, we find an answer. We find wisdom, hope, teachings, gurus, higher wisdom. Sometimes it's just religion, something that we believe. We all believe something, whether it's right or not, or wrong or not, is in some way secondary, because just believing it is an anchor. It gives us strength. When we don't have any belief, when we've lost hope, then life is not worth living, right? So even if they're bad beliefs, at least the beliefs anchor our identity on something that we can believe in, right? But often the shadow side of those beliefs is that sort of blind faith. And that's what Gemini, the full moon in Gemini, is doing, is it's reflecting back and questioning those beliefs, as it says here. So the sun in Sagittarius is about purpose and hope, and that full moon in Gemini is reflecting back and questioning and trying to integrate. Okay, I believe it, but how does it work? What do I say? What do I think about all of this? I don't really know. So we're trying to integrate the opposites. That's just a natural phenomena where we're always trying to integrate the opposites. And we can see it with, like, masculine, feminine, which often includes, man, woman, different, the heart and the mind, day and night, all this, everything moves and vacillates between the extremes. And that's one way to really understand astrology and the zodiac well, is to look at how each sign is a mirror reflection and an opposite of the other. And we don't really complete and understand one of the signs without integrating its opposite. This means that we can't really complete the Sagittarius lesson and the Sagittarius cycle unless we've integrated and answered the questions of the Gemini reflection, right? This is why when we have these teachings that are just sort of dogmatic and we just blindly believe them, blind faith, just believe, don't question. Well, we can say that as a principle and we can think that's beneficial, but the reality is, if we don't understand our beliefs, if we just believe them blindly, then they're not going to help us very much, because when we need answers, we're going to rely on things that we know, things that we've lived, our lived experience, and things we can understand and things we can explain. That's why Gemini, underneath it all, is very questioning, but it's also very experiential. This is the biggest thing about Gemini and the ruler Mercury. Again, Jupiter is very abstract and very much in the beliefs, and in many ways, things that are beyond this world, these beliefs which are beyond the world. Just believe it. Well, Mercury, who is the ruler of Gemini, says, I don't believe it. I want to see how it works. How does it work? And what are you saying? Okay, you tell me to believe these big principles, but you're not putting them into practice. You're not walking the talk. You talk about having faith and all this stuff, but then when it comes down to it, you don't act that way. You act like a hypocrite. You're saying to love everybody, but you don't love everybody. You're saying to have charity and be generous, but you're greedy, judgmental. You're not very kind. So you're just a hypocrite. And again, and Mercury, who is the ruler of Gemini and also the ruler of Virgo, is about experience. It's not just also in the highest sense, it's not just about finding holes in the argument, because that's the problem with the Mercury and the Gemini as well. You might be good at playing the devil's advocate. This is what happens with me. This is a big axis around astrology, and people believe in astrology, but they don't really know how it works. And then as they start learning more about it, they have this illusion that they know more than they actually know. Again, this is also how the Sagittarius Gemini energy comes in. They have this illusion that they know more about it than they know because of information they've gathered. This is Gemini. But the information that you gathered isn't knowledge until you apply it. You have to do it. And you have to do it in a lot of charts for a while. And again, this is the power of Mercury, is to actually put it into practice. The way you can tell whether you understand it is if you can explain it. Can you explain it? Again, even I think it was Einstein said that the real sign of genius is if you can explain something complicated in a very simple way. That's how you know someone really understands something and is a real master of something. If you hear someone explain something and you're more confused after hearing them explain it than when you asked, then this person doesn't really understand it very well. You should be able to explain things simply that you understand well, because you can explain it from the bottom up very quickly and understand the concept. And again, that's the integration of the Jupiter and the Mercury principle, because the concept in the bigger picture is the Jupiter part and the details are the Mercury part. Again, so the concept, if you want to use the astrology model, the reason that astrology would be important is because it connects us with this transcendent cosmic universe, and we can just get too into that. Oh, I believe it. I believe it. I believe in that whole thing. Yes. And think I know it because I believe it. No, you believe it. You don't know it. You believe it. You'll know it the more you're able to practice it. And you'll then not just believe it, but then start to learn about it. This is starting the Gemini cycle, starting to learn about it, like take a class, get some information, but don't mistake gathering information about it, which is the Mercury thing, for now I understand it and I am just as knowledgeable as you, someone who's been doing it for 20 years. No, because you're now gathering information about it. You understand it. You can maybe explain some of it, but you don't practice it yet. And again, this is also the illusion around the Gemini principle. This is why I'm bringing it up, because these are things that we can be dealing with now. I obviously run into a lot of people who they'll repeat back to me the things they've heard. Well, I know this, and all they're doing is telling me the stuff they've memorized. It's not a bad thing. It's good. We have to learn it and memorize things, but it's very easy to think that memorizing things is somehow mastering it. Like you can memorize principles in astrology, but unless you've seen them play out in the astrology chart and living people who've gone through it, you're not going to really know what to say, especially with something like astrology that's complicated, because it's like, well, there's a good thing, but then there's a bad thing. So what is it, good or bad? Again, this is where we then get into this binary kind of understanding where we don't really understand it. For example, a planet that's debilitated, but it has what's called Nichabanga, debilitated but retrograde, but joined its ruler, blah, blah. So which is it, good or bad? Again, this is the hallmark, and it's very common, not just in astrology, but in life, where we think we understand something more than we actually understand it. For example, we've just gone through this whole thing with COVID and all the everybody became a kind of expert in mRNA technology, right? Because they can read things. Now they understand it as well and can argue with people who've been doing it their whole life, right? Again, this illusion of understanding and of wisdom now is just rampant online. So this is a deeper dive into these things, right? And so Sagittarius is the depth of teaching, and it's ruled by Jupiter, who is guru. Guru isn't just a teacher, it's guru, like the wisdom of the universe and how it aligns with higher truth. It's the deepest wisdom. Guru literally often means heady, which allows us to sink down into the wisdom of the heart. That's why Guru Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, because again, it's where that wisdom sinks down into the heart and becomes devoted, and we become devoted to wisdom, and where wisdom becomes a devotional principle, not just something, I believe it, and then we're ready to just kind of run our mouth about it when we don't really even understand it. Because again, we have to integrate our natural desire to believe in something. Again, we want to believe in something. So it's no great feat to believe in something. You haven't done much. We're going to believe in something. It's better to believe in something that's worth believing in, but it doesn't mean any big thing has happened yet. You need to believe in something and then understand it, right? Not just believe in it and then say a bunch of stuff about it as if that's somehow wisdom. It becomes wisdom when it becomes integrated into the heart. And once it becomes integrated in the heart, then you become fascinated and curious about it and you learn about it. Again, just think of the sign of Cancer, which is a sign of like motherhood and nurturing and growth. Look at how intelligent and wise a mother is about her children. She knows everything about them because she loves them. So she's fascinated with it and gathers all kinds of information about it and knows every detail about it and can explain every detail about it. So that love of knowledge and information anchored in the heart actually is really what Gemini is about in its deepest sense, because again, Gemini is right before the sign of Cancer. So you can see how these things work. So Gemini is not just trying to be a kind of egghead and just kind of gather a lot of data and have it disconnected. It's to gather the data about the things that you love, where these higher teachings have inspired you and set you off on a course where you use that faculty of curiosity, discrimination, to really question your own beliefs. And again, the nakshatra of Ardra ruled by Lord Shiva, is where we're willing to destroy our illusion, because we have a lot of illusions around these things that we think we already know. And again, real Gemini wisdom is where we don't have any preconception about what's actually true. We're figuring it out as we go. I have a lot of Gemini energy, and I've learned a lot, taught a lot, and my perception of what's true is always changing. I'm always willing to destroy what I thought was true yesterday. Could change any minute. In fact, sometimes it changes in real time while I'm talking like this. I'll realize, oh, you know what? That's actually true. Because true isn't a static proposition. Because I'm not a static proposition, and neither are you. So your capacity to even cognize truth, if it's static and you think truth is some static equation, I mean relative to data, not universal truth, not relative to Dharma, but relative to any sort of practice or any kind of thing that you're trying to understand. It's a growth process. It's always changing because you're always evolving your capacity and your wisdom. At least you should be. So this is the great promise of where we're at right now with that. And again, we also have this great, we're also right on the verge of this 2024 and these big shifts that are happening. And I, again, invite you to avail yourself of the 2024 forecast as well.
Go to 2024vedicastrology.com to download the 11 most important shifts in 2024. Don't be blindsided by the upcoming eclipses, retrogrades. You can get the free forecast, which is both the PDF download as well as the free video report. And again, this free report will allow you to discover important shifts for your sign, how to align with higher wisdom and purpose and hope in 2024 as Jupiter shifts and moves into Taurus. Also, different placements such as exalted Mars at the beginning of the year, debilitated Mars at the end of the year, the big 1-2 punch at the beginning of this year, when and how communication problems will be occurring throughout the year with the Mercury retrograde cycles, all kinds of other things that you want to understand. This is a free PDF download and then also a free web class. So go ahead, go to 2024vedicastrology.com and download that now. For a limited time, I'm offering 10 hours of masterclasses, Yoga and Vedic Astrology, Quantum Vedic Astrology, and Spiritual Astrology Masterclass. These are 3 great courses that will really help you a lot. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I taught the Astroved certification course, Dattatreya Shiva Baba, in 2010. Ravi Shankar published my book in 2018. I've been around for decades. I've been teaching these great classes, and if you go to VedicAstrologyEssentials.com, you can get this 90% off discount of these 3 great classes, more than 10 hours, guaranteed value. You can check this out. These 3 classes will give you all the necessary tools to begin to learn Vedic astrology. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.